Good evening. Cincinnati is a name which has been carried with honor in military history going back to the original Cincinnatus, the Roman farmer, statesman, and general who was a legendary model of patriotism. World War II had Cincinnati's 147th Infantry Regiment, and 4 naval vessels have carried our town's name since Civil War days. I can bring word now that Cincinnati's name continues to rest in honorable and dependable hands on the city's current naval namesake, the nuclear-powered submarine, the USS Cincinnati. Since covering the launching of the Cincinnati at Newport News, Virginia in February of 1977, I'd been hoping to get the Navy to clear an actual trip on the submarine, still a highly classified vessel. It happened on a large but remote island in the Bahamas called Andros, the site of the Navy's Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center, AUTEC for short. The Cincinnati was sent there for a series of practical exercises and mini war game tests. 9 Newswatch photographer Mark Charnick and I were cleared to join her. Now, it wasn't done by promising to bring along Lonnie Anderson from WKRP in Cincinnati, but we were asked by some of the sailors who saw this welcome sign at the gate why we hadn't. AUTEC is an incredibly sophisticated installation, which literally forces our Navy submarine commanders to prove that they can meet the challenges of modern warfare if and when necessary. The Navy describes AUTEC and its functions this way.
The workday starts early at the laboratory in the sea. Target vehicles have to be loaded prior to the launch vessel's deployment. These are selected by AUTEC test personnel.
Snapper 306, this is Tango. Come to course 120 degrees, 6 knots. Expect the COMEX in 5 minutes.
Maneuvering con, make 8 knots by log.
15,
increasing a little.
4.2.
I don't want 2. Right 2. That's fine.
Confirming unit 613. Course 120 degrees, speed 6 knots.
Go ahead.
Stand by. Minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark, target launch.
Left full rudder.
Left control. They're dead on target.
Stopping noise. Target. Open the outer door.
Open outer door in tube 2. Outer door indicates open.
Stand by. Shoot.
As soon as the torpedo leaves the tube, its pinger begins to emit signals into the water. These signals are picked up by hydrophones on the floor of the range as the torpedo passes over them. The hydrophones transmit the signals through cable to shore at sites 3 and 4, where they are processed and sent to site 1. Here, the raw hydrophone data is fed into the range computer and command control, where it is converted into a real-time track of the torpedo and its target throughout the exercise.
4 close 6. This is Tango. I am tracking your unit.
If it was a hit, theoretically on an enemy submarine, it will be a please sub-captain and crew. If it was a miss, that potentially grim embarrassment is duly recorded. The torpedoes they fire at ship targets and each other aren't live, but they aren't cheap. And if you've never seen a torpedo flying, you've never been to Andros. One of the more interesting sights here at Andros is watching the helicopters as they leave and return to go out and retrieve the torpedoes, which are used in the practice runs out in the ocean. The submarine, which has fired a torpedo, is tracked constantly and precisely in a control center, and so is the torpedo and target, both of which are picked up by the copter baskets or by divers from retrieval vessels. Helicopters go out and literally fish them out of the water, reclaim them for reuse. A good idea considering they cost about $750,000 a piece. Set down just like a baby. The AUTEC Center needs a whole fleet of helicopters, and we took one of them out before the day came to an end. Here's a memorable sight, a memorable experience in this Navy helicopter hovering over the AUTEC range here in the Atlantic, looking down on the USS Andrew Jackson as she comes to the surface and cuts through the water. The late afternoon sun highlighting her as she moves along with her graceful lines showing just beneath us here out over the AUTEC range. But it was the USS Cincinnati that we came to board, and she was waiting. That adventure just hours away. On that super, that word next should have a double. The Navy's Atlantic Underwater Test and Evaluation Center is in a remote part of the Bahamas, and considering the classified nature of the work there, that obviously is no accident. The Atlantic off Andros was selected for this facility, designed to test submarine maneuver and weapons systems, because it is a deep water area, literally blocked off on 3 sides by land or shallow water, with an entrance in a channel which can easily be controlled. In other words, the Russians or Cubans can't slip in or be around without us knowing it, so they don't try. The part of the trip Newswatch photographer Mark Charnick and I awaited eagerly, and a bit apprehensively, was our day on the USS Cincinnati, the nuclear-powered submarine. Never before had a news person been allowed aboard it, nor a civilian Cincinnatian for that matter. The day actually started in the middle of the night. When we boarded a Navy boat to carry us 5 miles out to the Cincinnati, it was 4:49 a.m. Most Navy submarine personnel come here at least once a year. We had with us on this morning a number of officers going through final evaluation themselves as potential submarine commanders. We reached the Cincinnati about half an hour later, and after jumping aboard, joined Commander Kurt Juroff on the bridge. He's a native of South Bend, Indiana, Annapolis graduate, and has commanded the Cincinnati for almost 2 years. Commander Juroff, I've welcomed the dawn in lots of places in my lifetime, but I never before did it on the bridge of a nuclear submarine, the Cincinnati.
Well, sir, you're certainly welcome on board this ship. I feel as if this ship belongs to you as well as us, because you come from the city.
It's an awesome responsibility to be commanding a vessel like this. All of the personnel, of course, but such a powerful weapon and such an intricate weapon. The training I know that you went through is the most rigorous kind, but I bet you really revel in it now that you have command of this ship.
Well, of course, I did spend a good bit of time getting ready for this, and I feel well prepared. And it is a big responsibility. I'm fully aware of that. It also is a lot of fun to work with an outfit such as this one and people of the capability that our modern Navy has today. It's a joy.
To the extent you can say, many things are classified, I know, but people in Cincinnati are very curious about this vessel and just what it can do in defense of the country.
Well, this class ship is probably the most capable submarine in the world today in carrying out anti-submarine warfare and anti-surface craft warfare, especially from a stance that enables it to remain covert and undetected even as it carries out its mission.
Before diving, Commander Juroff gave us an introductory thrill. He lowered most of the Cincinnati below the surface with little more than the bridge we stood on extending out of water. We sliced along the ocean's surface. What a way to water ski. Then down the hatch to get ready for the tough stuff. The actual dive and maneuvers in the Cincinnati, the rare chance to see it and its crew in action from the inside out, and even take over the controls, would you believe? Journalistically, there's one insurmountable obstacle in doing a report on a trip underwater in a submarine. It is impossible to get both sides of the story at the same time. Once that hatch is closed, it's a one-sided story, although certainly the inside account. By nature and function, a submarine is a lone wolf, prowling silently beneath the seas with extreme care to see that it doesn't lose the advantage it has when the enemy doesn't know it is there. We'd seen Andros and the AUTEC facility from the outside, but it really was only skimming the surface for what awaited beneath the Atlantic.
Captain, the ship is rigged for dive. Request permission to submerge the ship, sir.
Submerge the ship to 150 feet, get 1/3 sat trim, aye, sir. Chief watch, true blast of diving line. Dive on 1C.
Dive, control area guy.
Lower number 2, brow 34.
Lower number 2, brow 34. Lower number 2, brow 34, aye. Number 2, brow 34 coming down.
The USS Cincinnati, fourth ship of the fleet to carry our town's name over the decades, a nuclear-powered vessel whose prime job is to hunt out and destroy enemy submarines and ships, was on its way down. How deep it goes is classified. So is its speed. But put it this way, it doesn't take the Cincinnati very long to get very deep. Like other landlubbers, I had no idea what feelings and reactions awaited in a submerged submarine. Well, there was no claustrophobic feeling on the part of Newswatch photographer Mark Charnick nor myself, and when the Cincinnati was cutting through the water at or near a constant level, it was as smooth as satin. But when Commander Kurt Juroff ordered the submarine to start maneuvering, like it would when trying to elude detection or an enemy torpedo, that changed. During a steep ascent, we found ourselves standing angularly, something like the sideways stance in the funhouse at Old Coney Island. The control center resembles the cockpit of a modern jetliner, dual controls and an emergency stick control. The Cincinnati is 360 feet long and 5 stories high, but handles, I got to find out, more responsively and smoothly than the family car.
Okay, so now you pull it back, see, watch his planes indication clear. So you pull it back like this, go to rise, okay? You push it down like this, go to rise. See, okay. And see, you also have the rudder here. Push notice go left and right, right?
Now, I'm not really in control of direction here, am I?
Yes, well, you do what the, in other words, you point the ship in the direction that the officer deck tells you to point the ship at. And to do that...
Well, I'll respond to whatever command, believe me.
Okay. Okay, see, now you're at 0808. Now you want to come a little bit left. See, to stop it at 010. Okay? So you just move it to the right now, 010. Okay, see how the ship's heading and stop there? Okay.
About on course?
Right. Now you just put the rudder neutral there, see? And the rudder goes right back to 0 there. There we
Rudder
go.
midships.
Now you see you're supposed to say rudder midships, aye, sir.
Aye, sir. How about that?
That's good. Okay, now just leave it.
This really is, as someone described it, very much like a jetliner cockpit, isn't it?
Yeah,
in
it's
some
pretty much
senses?
like an aircraft. Of course, it can't go as fast, but it reacts in the same way in a different medium.
Aircraft can't do what this vessel can do.
It sure can.
Just about the time we finished the series of sharp angles and turns as used in combat, a plaintive question came from the chef in the galley.
Officer deck. Are we going to be taking any more angles? They want to light off the deep fat fryers and cook French fries. No more angles. No more angles,
If you didn't get what the cook was saying, he wanted to know if we weren't about finished with all that twisting and turning. He wanted to get the French fries into the deep fat. I asked the navigator afterward how far off course we'd gone during my turn at the wheel. He said the way he figured, we probably were going to wind up in Nome, Alaska, if someone didn't steer us back toward the Bahamas. Happily, someone did. The USS Cincinnati, the nuclear-powered submarine named after our town, is 360 feet long and about 5 stories high, or roughly the length from goalpost to goalpost at Riverfront Stadium, standing as high as the yellow seat level. That's a lot of space, but not when it houses a full nuclear power plant, torpedoes, control rooms, sonar centers, galleys, dining facilities, and sleeping quarters for more than 120 men. The Cincinnati's crew can't be said to live in comfort in the same sense one exists with the furnishings and atmosphere of a home or apartment, but what can be done to make the vessel more habitable is provided. During our time aboard her at the Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center in the Bahamas, it was hardly possible to get the feel of the days and even weeks of submerged life that submariners must endure, but even a small sample makes it evident that submarine crewmen have physical and mental stamina in extraordinary proportions. There is a monetary incentive. Enlisted men combining sea and submarine pay can earn from $110 to $575 a month in extra cash, depending on rank. And officers get from $280 to $750 more a month when at sea on a sub. The commanding officer of the Cincinnati, mannerly and personable Kurt Juroff, qualifies with bonuses for $62,000 a year as a commander. That, by the way, is more than the Chief of Naval Operations is paid. It's not unusual for the Cincinnati on sea duty to be submerged for weeks, even months in some instances. How does Mark Summers of Amarillo, Texas, fill the time?
Work on qualifications and clean up, yeah, and sleep when you got time. Either that or we do work down in whatever part of the system of the ship we work on.
Does it get tiresome once in a while?
All the time.
Charlie Cullip of Orlando, Florida likes sports as a fan and participant. But what can a submariner do in the confines of a vessel, even one as big as the Cincinnati?
You can run around in the engine room. There's some warm areas you can work out to build some sweat, but it's very difficult to extend yourself physically since the limited room and size of the submarine. You just try to keep your weight down when you see, try not to eat too much. And
I've noticed everybody's been trying to keep their weight down here every minute.
and you work out a lot when you're in port.
You a career Navy man?
No.
Huh?
No.
Just in for a while. Then you're going to get out and manage the Cincinnati Reds.
I don't know if I can do a better job than they're doing now, but they didn't do too good this last year. Hopefully they'll do a lot better this next year.
Like sailors the world over, the Cincinnati crewmen have their fun and practical joking time and their serious moments. Duty hours are serious ones on the Cincinnati. They are not forewarned what orders are coming, and they are to respond to every command to dive, evade, or ascend like it's for the real reason, to get into position to sink an enemy sub or ship, or to move to evade the torpedoes of an enemy sub gunning for it. It's an atmosphere and procedure which does get one's attention. Currently, there are no greater Cincinnatians in the crew of the USS Cincinnati, but Cincinnati is not just a name to those aboard the nuclear-powered submarine. Far from it. Cincinnati mementos are prominent throughout. An autographed bat from a Cincinnati Reds World Championship team. A plaque with the names and dates of the 4 naval vessels which have carried the name Cincinnati. A silver tray presented to the USS Cincinnati by the city, featuring the official seal and the Tyler Davidson fountain on Fountain Square. Don't forget the official headgear of the Cincinnati's crew right out of Riverfront. Incidentally, it's been suggested that if the baseball Reds don't shape up, Bengal tiger-striped helmets might soon be appearing on the Cincinnati. Before our departure, Submarine Commander Kurt Juroff, who was effusive about the liaison which has continued to exist between the city and the submarine, asked photographer Mark Charnick and I to represent Cincinnati at a presentation.
Al, on behalf of the officers and men of the United States ship Cincinnati, I'd like to present you with the ship's plaque and ask you to display this in such a position and manner that the people of the city of the Cincinnati can best recognize and understand our concern to maintain our close bond with their fair city. You're a representative of the city of Cincinnati for us today, and we certainly wanted to treat you with the warmness that we feel from the city of Cincinnati, Cincinnati Reds, from our sponsor, Mrs. Keating, and all the people who have treated us as well as we felt we've been treated. Thank them very much.
Thank you. I feel a great sense of honor in being able to carry this back to the city, because it has been delighted to have its name continue to be carried on the seas and under the seas, this being the fourth vessel to be so named, and also to hear that Cincinnatians will be welcome to visit the USS Cincinnati. As I understand, we are the pioneers in this. We are the first to come aboard from the media and as representatives of the city. And again, it will take a prominent place at our station and be made well known to our citizens. The crew also had a message for Cincinnatians.
From the USS Cincinnati, Merry Christmas, everybody! From the USS Cincinnati, Merry Christmas!
The Cincinnati had surfaced in the Atlantic about 5 miles off the shore of the Navy's AUTEC base on Andros Island in the Bahamas. That's where we said goodbye to it and boarded a small boat for shore. It was a typically brilliant day in the Bahamas, and the trip we had just completed in the ocean depths already began to seem a little unreal to Mark and I and our Navy escorts, Lieutenant Commanders Chuck Connor and Tony Hilton. But it is real, the Cincinnati, and others like it, who go about their assignments wherever in the world's oceans. Subjects of scorn from disarmament and anti-nuclear crusaders, sources of reassurance to those who believe our underwater nuclear fleet is the most formidable weapon we have to deter aggressors. This much I know after a brief but eye-opening tour aboard her. I wouldn't want the Cincinnati after me. From the scenery to the submarines, AUTEC and Andros Island were breathtaking experiences. But AUTEC isn't there to be admired or thrilled over. It's a place to practice war. One of the key people in seeing that Navy and RCA civilian personnel at Andros Island demonstrate that they are state-of-the-art in their assignments is a Greater Cincinnati native, Ted Athanasakis, head of program management for AUTEC. He grew up in Norwood, was in a test cell at the General Electric plant in Evendale for many years. His parents still live in Silverton. Now, we know they're good, but how good are our American commanders and our American subfleet?
I feel comfortable in what we see down here, the testing, the training, the consistent proficiencies, we call it. They frequent the range almost, each command has to come here once a year to undergo the trials and prove the system, prove their capability of exercising the system. This is the shipboard sensors and even the weapon systems.
I detect that you feel that we can match in this area anyone.
Well, that's Al, it's a difficult question to answer. When you say to match, I feel we can't be complacent. We almost recognize that even though we are thinking about defense preparations, so is everybody else.
The feeling carried away from the Navy's underwater testing range in the Bahamas was one I've had in the past after touring other nerve centers of our national defense system. I don't really understand all they do, don't really expect to. But with the conviction that a lot of dedicated people do know what they are doing, and that they share the common hope of all of us that the decision makers in Washington are making the right calls too. The Cincinnati's home port is Norfolk, Virginia. She's there about 50% of the time. And when she is, Cincinnatians hereafter will be welcome to come aboard. Believe me, it's well worth the trip. Thank you for joining us. I'm Al Shuttlecutty.